Time no see. I'm gonna start recording the session. Let's go record. I'm allowing for a couple of more people to arrive, just one more minute, so we can begin timely. As we respect all of your time. Colin.
Yeah, Colin knows how exciting it is for us to be all together.
It's
like, what?
Jack. Wow, Chad. Oh, there's Jack. Saying hello. And I recognize many names of people that I see in Twitter, and it's just exciting to see the faces behind. Thank you.
Thanks for being real.
We try. Thank you, Robert. Best to be here and supporting us in all the currency design workshop, and being here to support anyone that has problems with technical aspects. Please contact Robert through chat. He'll be happy to provide for support. Okay, should we do it?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Let's go. So welcome. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna stop recording and begin recording again because I wanted it cleaner. Here we go. Welcome. Welcome to the Currency Design Webinar. We're very, very pleased to have you all here. Very excited about what a warm, I would say, like approval, or we have had by seeing all the people that have registered to this webinar. And so today, what we're going to be looking at is very exciting for us. But first, I think we should say, who are we? Who are we as a team?
You mean besides Fernanda, Jean, and Emmeline?
Exactly.
Yes. So this is born out of Metacurrency and the CommonsEngine. And Metacurrency is sort of the umbrella by which Scepter was created. And then from that, the birth of Holo and Holochain. And then CommonsEngine is building a common-centric economy on top of Holochain. And so we're most interested in solving the reciprocity gap, which we think of as one of the core issues with current market dynamics.
Yeah. That says it. And so today, the webinar, we're going to be looking at some essential aspects of what does it mean to be a currency designer? What is the experience that is required? What are the set of tools that are available to us? Or why should we learn more? What is there to learn? What is currency beyond tokens and ERC20s and crypto? So we're going to go and to dive a bit into those realms, so that you come out of this webinar going like, oh yeah, I get it. And we're going to also offer a deep understanding of the structure of the workshop that we're going to give. It's a 10 weeks workshop, so we're going to tell you what's going to be the structure, what's going to work, what kind of resources would be available for you, who's going to present, and what are the opportunities. And hopefully with that, you'll have clarity to make an informed decision of whether you want to participate and how do you want to participate with us. So this is for today. That being said, I think we can go straight into it.
Fabulous. So we want to begin by talking about some of the possibilities that currency might enable and why we're so excited about this idea of currency design. And so we're going to give a couple of vignettes about that before going into the workshop materials. So the one that I've gotten really excited about lately has been what it can mean to do funding with currency design. And this sort of means an ICO, but for me, that looks a little bit more like raising a market out of a peer-to-peer network. And we think that, in the case of Holo, this is what we did, right? We created a market for Holo, and people bought into that market. And instead of going for VC funding, which can often corrupt the intentions of a startup and extract a lot of money later on, going through an ICO can create the revenue up front so that the projects don't end up getting corrupted by the influence of money and the extraction of value in the long term. We also think that that can help organizations shift towards commons-centric governance of that economy. And so we're very excited about what that possibility enables. We're watching closely what the regulation is that can encourage or discourage that. And Holo and Holochain are trying to lead the way in doing it in an ethical and reasonable manner so that we can open that way, open the possibilities for funding through community fundraising and ICOs.
Yeah, and so really, given this possibility for crowdfunded capital flows, it sort of blows the door open for new possibilities of what the future of businesses look like, and of course, what the future of work looks like. So if we are receiving crowdfunded capital rather than VC-funded capital, for example, what that enables is really strongly ethically oriented brands and a sort of rise in the recognized importance of community-oriented work, right? So as I see it right now, we're sort of caught in this transitional moment of independent and flexible labor. What some people call even a precarious regime of work, given the sort of fall of the safeties that that maybe some of us have come to expect. And so if capital is crowdfunded, what that enables is these flexible, independent doers and makers to actually use not only financial capital that they generate, but also to use non-monetary currencies so that they can better understand the value that exists between them. They can share resources more wisely and also stand to really gain autonomy through sort of like a heightened collective power and better opportunities for mutual support. So in that vein, bringing cooperatives online, for example, is a great first step. But companies themselves also can track different forms of value to really reflect better their social impact. So to stakeholders and consumers who are rightly, right, and increasingly concerned with, for example, climate disaster. So this opens up the possibility of, for example, ethical and transparent supply chain management, which we think is a pretty critical function of new currencies.
Oh, it's my turn. Yes, there's so much to this work. One thing I want to express, or we want to express, is that part of this work is the great mental understanding, right? Like really go into the knowing of how these currencies are designed. But another essential aspect is the consciousness shift. And we want to be able to go from the mental understanding into an embodied practice of what does it mean to become a currency designer? What makes a currency designer great? And one essential aspect of that or one of the means or entry points into currency design is the understanding of living systems. And living systems, yes, you can see like, oh yeah, nature is an incredible model, right? It's our consultant that has been billions of years and that is so successful. So we want to be able to learn how it behaves, how does it create its economic system. But then if we want embodied practice, the first piece that we want to go into, the first essential, is the understanding of flow. Because nature doesn't move because of the objects. It moves because of the flows in between those objects, because of the interconnectedness and interdependence, because of the symbionomy and mutualism, because of their relationships. And once that you can deeply understanding in the mind and go like, oh yeah, but you know, the mind doesn't help us because it separates objects from subject. It doesn't allow us to have a flow-centric perspective of the world. Once that you make the shift, and believe me, we're going to be able to do exercises and practices to be able to help you have a flow-centric perspective of the world. And then, you know what? Blue pill, red pill moment, you will start to see flows everywhere. And what does that mean to start to see flows everywhere? Well, in the philosophy of metacurrency, it means that currency, it's a way to see a current. It's a way to make visible, enable, or shape flows. Enable, make visible, shape. So if you imagine what it would do if we could see the flows of where my clothes are made, what kind of decisions would that make? If you start seeing what are the flows that work in your own body, what flows are not working, you could accomplish exceptional health. And so there is an essential aspect of the health of living systems. Another piece that we're going to go into is the understanding of wealth in a most essential level, because nature has a wealth building pattern at the heart of it. And that's the key of and the heart of its economic system, really, which is the key of its success. So to understand wealth, we have to go, of course, beyond money. So we have built and we use what we call the levels of wealth map, and I think I'm gonna share it with you. So you have like kind of like the sense of how deep it goes into the understanding of the whole levels of system integrity, all the way from the parts and the products and tradable wealth, you know, what we understand as money, as tokens, as other sorts of types of currencies, all the way to the evolutionary capacity of systems. And through that, the way into performance and properties and measurable wealth, so that when you grab this tool, you'll be able to design your currencies according to what kind of social organism, as in organization, as in what kind of project you want to enable. And you'll have a deep understanding, and you'll have tools, and you'll have practices in your hand, so that you'll have tools that will help you get that embodied practice that we're talking about. And through that, we'll have others like the currency life token, the currency, the cycle of a token, or the cycle of currencies, where you'll get what rules need to govern a currency. Who makes those decisions? What is the questions behind governance, behind operation? How does it evolve? How do you grow adoption? What kind of tools do you use to manage it? What is the end of its life? How does it get redeemed? How do you involve community? What kind of relationships you have to enable? You know, all those things are precious and really important for the understanding, and it's part of the toolkit that you get for a current to becoming an incredible currency designer. It's like, you know, it's two things. It's one, with the part of the flows, it's like if you know, like the eye doesn't grab the whole spectrum of light, so suddenly you will enable your eye to see the whole spectrum of light, and what was invisible will become visible. It will come visible to you, so you'll be able to see other type of flows. And in the other hand, with the tools, it's like being a painter, and suddenly you see all the shades of light and color, and then you have a wide range of brushes and canvases and textures to be able to play with. So that's exciting for us to share. That being said,
so I hope you got a sense from hearing from Farananda that like currencies are everywhere. We're not just talking about tradable, tokenization type currencies. Of course, we're talking about things like paper money, but that also includes gift certificates and coupons and loyalty cards and the health meter in your game that you're playing, or the sustainability development goals and the metrics around that, or airline miles, or reputation currencies, or even all the stuff that you're doing around quantified self stuff, like the health metrics and measures and your company metrics and, the Dow Jones. And like, there's so many things that are involved in what we're talking about when we mean currencies that only begin with tradable currencies and move through performance indicators and measures into only acknowledgeable and then even evolutionary capacity.
Talking about someone that knows how to see flows and sees currencies everywhere, because you start understanding flows and you start connected to currencies, and then
matrix moment.
There's no going back, so be warned. So we can see all those currencies, how they help us, and one of the main aspects of why for us currencies involves all the levels of system integrity, and one very important focus is measurement. Because we are facing a measurement crisis. Measurement is super important because it shapes the perceptions of reality. The people that create the measurements or they create the standards have incredible power in our consciousness, because that's what we will see. If we are guided our economy through gross national product, that's what we will see. We will see progress as more production and more material and more, so what is that getting us? Is getting us into a finite game. We cannot go there anymore. And yet is one of the main indicators of our economy. It's one of those black mirror moments, right? And so for us, that part of the measurement is to give you, as a currency designer, a toolkit for creating new approaches to the representation of complex realities. Let it sink, because that goes beyond monetary. It goes into non-monetary, and it's way more important because that's the things that we are not prepared to see, or that people mostly don't see. And it's not invisible. It's not that they're invisible. It's just that we're not trained to see them.
Yeah. So having this perspective on currencies as anything from being able to measure flows of atoms or particles all the way up to being able to look at massive flows of resources and assets in communities or across countries is so important to be able to show, first of all, the impact of what it is that different social projects are doing, the impact that different social systems are having. Because again, we're not trained, as Fernanda was saying, we're not trained to be able to recognize like the whole spectrum of assets that really make the difference in our well-being, right? So some of you may be familiar with this narrative already, right? But the neoliberal policy changes that have sort of like swept across the globe over the past couple decades, right? So those sort of fostered in this era of counting, for example, counting financial services, right, into GDP, which meant that the power of financial intermediaries grew massively. And what we've seen, right, in our post-2008 world, at least, here in the US, is how extractive financial systems have been, right? That they're in fact extracting value from our social systems and from our natural economies as well, rather than really creating value. And of course, because this is, right, because finance entered into gross domestic product, that's sort of the crux of the problem, right, is this tie-in there. Because, and this is a well-known critique at this point, but I believe that we can go farther from sort of picking at GDP and being concerned about, hey, how come only financial capital is being measured when there are really different types of capital that can be measured using different currencies, ones that can't be traded, that actually correspond more accurately to the things that really lift up human life and that really help us to thrive. And so this is why, right, there's such a focus when we saw the levels of wealth model in going beyond tradable wealth, right? Because there are facets of value that can't be exchanged at all, right? Health metrics, right? You can't trade those among people, right? Those are things that need to be tracked exactly where they're found, where they live. They have, you would even say, a longer life cycle, perhaps, than other currencies. So these are just some of the ways, right, that our current systems of measurement basically gets it wrong. And we can say gets it wrong because if we're doing things that are meaningful to us, right, without the sort of, without the resources, without the money, without what we need to really get along and feel like there's a future for humanity, that's got to indicate a mismatch, right?
Yeah, and we keep trying to improve these things. It's not like any of these efforts weren't done with good intentions, right? Each time we do innovation in the currency realm, we're trying to improve what society looks like. And then we go, oh, we didn't understand the consequences of what these things were. And so post-2008, we have the rise of the crypto economy, right? And it's like, oh, we can get away from banks and the dynamics that get created by banks. And here we are in 2019 going, wait a second. Now we have these like plutocratic mining pools. That's not like this distributed world that we were talking about and trying to aim for. And it's become extractive and now getting taken over by the banks themselves, right? Who are some of the bigger investors into that world? And so there's this life cycle to how we're doing this work that transcends the life cycle of an individual currency. That has to do with how we're learning as we're developing currencies, what the consequences of those are, and then being able to adjust. So it's super important as a currency designer to plan for that in advance, to be thinking ahead of how am I going to be able to modify these currencies down the road, right? So that we have smarter contracts, not just smart contracts that get stuck in time, but allow for the evolutionary development of the currencies that we're designing so we can keep improving what we've been building.
Yeah, and governance is such a huge part of this, right? Part of crypto was sort of the attempt to automate away trust by having these really fixed sort of if-then executions, right? But we actually imagine a future world of crypto in which there are contracts that are not only modifiable, but that also contain really granular information about who's able to access what sorts of data, about what sorts of flows, right? The conditions in which sharing is possible and the conditions in which anonymity is important, right? So sort of getting deeper into the facets that make systems flow, which is not simply taking off all restraints and all barriers, right? Or doing the opposite by closing things down and making it so only automated systems can sort of push go on particular arrangements. But we're trying to kind of get into that messy in-between space and really recognize the importance of the human designer and of the sort of style and the values of the particular collective or of the network for whom the data or the asset is important, right? And that's kind of what it's about to be a currency designer, is bringing that care and that responsibility, right?
Yeah, and the governance. And, and part of that, of what we're doing is, currency design, in the way that we're also going to bring it forward is what has been done so far. It's not only about cryptocurrencies and all things digital. Community currencies has been there for a long time. And so we'll be able to learn from people that have been deep practitioners that have created and designed and implemented complementary currencies around the world and learn from them. Because some of those, I mean, lessons still apply. Humans are humans. You still have to build a relationship. You know, the token is not sufficient. You don't have a cryptocurrency or a currency because you have a token, or you have a set of symbols that represent certain realities. You do need those to enable those flows through relationship and through the different communities that are part of your project, part of the organization, part of the people that will be the ones that will be using or shifting their behaviors. Because when we say, you know, that currencies enable, make visible or shape flows, you know, you can think about how certain currencies, and maybe Jean, you can bring us into some concrete example of how it shapes behavior. And we have some interesting Q&As, and we're doing pretty good in time.
Yeah.
Yes, fascinating. And we still have half an hour. So if you could maybe name one of those cases, one of those examples where currencies shape behavior, and we could go into some Q&As. Yeah, and then go into the structure of the workshop.
Yeah.
Awesome. Perfect.
Sure. So how do they shape behavior? So, sorry, sort of spontaneous for me thinking about it. There are so many to choose from. When you're playing a game and you've got the little hearts that are telling you how much life force that you have left, that's shaping your behavior. If you've got your organizational metrics that are helping you understand where you are placed, what's flowing where, those are shaping behavior. The rise of carbon sequestration and carbon emissions and tracking what the flows of those are and trying to reduce the numbers, those are shaping behavior. My weight when I'm getting on the scale going, I need to do a little bit more exercise this week. That's a shaping of the behavior. So there's lots of currencies that you can design, and then there's some that are just already out there that are like more in the behavioral economics way that you need to be mindful of as a designer. Whether that's like tall CEOs tend to influence people in a way that shorter CEOs don't, or the way that the numbers show up on a price also affects people. So there's ways in which we're creating things that shape behavior, and also ways to be mindful of things that already exist in the world that are shaping behavior.
Which is a currency designer, it's awesome opportunity because you can think about what is the behaviors that you want to enable and then make that possible through good currency design.
And always to tether them to the actual capacity of the network or the group that's being served by this measurement, right? So not a free-for-all, but like a really sort of sobering look at, okay, what is the potential relative to the capacity that exists in this milieu?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Should we go to questions?
Sure.
And then, or first we go the structure and then the questions at the end.
Well, I think that we should say a little, like, they've gotten a sense of some of us, but I would want to just like highlight some of the experiences that we're going to be bringing forward, and then we can do some questions. So hopefully it started to become clear that the team that we're pulling together for this, and it's not just the three of us, there are others that we'll be pulling in, and I think Emmeline will explain that later. But we've had experience of actually building currencies, whether that's cryptocurrencies or mutual credit currencies, community currencies, time banks, reputation systems. We've done deep wealth workshops. We've done books on how flows work in organizations. We've worked on pattern languages for currency. We've done frameworks for designing currencies to give you tools that help with currency design. So we're going to be pulling together the experience of our team and reaching out to a network of a few select others that we feel offer significant learning for our participants in the workshop.
And we really find exciting that it's, at least for us, I mean, we're three women, and it's a mostly male-dominated type of sphere and or domain, and here we are. And so we are really looking forward to creating a good diversity for you all in regards of the type of people that we're bringing in, and not only in their expertise of how they have been doing in implementing currencies, but and not only community currencies, also reputation currencies, and also like deep thinkers, deep thinkers
and practitioners.
And practitioners.
Like, I think it's so important that we have the practice to learn from what those, there's all these things that could go wrong, and we need to be mindful of those, and we discover those through the practice.
Yeah, so that's why we've structured the course actually to be, so it's a 10-week course, and we'll begin on October 3rd on Thursdays through December 12th. No need to take notes, we'll remind you of this incessantly. But so for the 10-week course, what happens is we'll have a sort of 5 and 5 structure where there are 5 kind of very focused lessons, 5 more lecture based, although we will be here in Zoom, and you guys seem abundantly capable of taking advantage of the chat and communicating on the side, which is awesome. So we have those 5 focused lectures, and then 5 case study presentations. And the case study presentations are where we bring in folks who have designed, I can tell you specifically, who have designed security tokens, who have designed community currencies like the Brixton Pound, who have designed successful reputation systems and reputation systems within a wide variety of web applications and games. And also designers of mutual credit currencies, which is sort of a special affordance of holochain technology and is a facet of currency design that's really dear to our hearts. So like I said, you have these case studies and these sort of more theoretical ones. Like I've already been seeing in the chat, like, what's the difference between a currency and this? Is a currency a means of production? And so we will be sort of going through some of those more juicier conceptual issues and be talking some about different theories of value and different models of meta capital, different models of assets and resources. And so in addition to that 10 weeks, and this is something that we're so excited about, is joining up with a new learning community called the Open Learning Commons to do a 1 year, and who knows if we'll extend this, but included in the price of the ticket is a 1-year membership in a community of practice, where we will sort of focus more as a network of practitioners, and we'll have moderated forums, we'll have curated materials, you'll be able to sort of have a lot of what you get from the lectures and the lessons and the case studies, and be able to sort of go with that on your own time as well.
Yeah. And I want to mention that it's been a long time aspiration of ours through the Metacurrency project to bring this currency design workshop to life. And then we all got distracted with holochain and holo and holofill and hot and all those things. And Arthur Brock is going to be one of the pillars of the lessons. So it will be the 3 of us and Arthur, and then the people with the case studies. And we'll the currency design community of practice for me, it's like, when we have those lenses, when we have all our tools to see, and we can go through with you into your own project, and we can workshop them together. When we can do that, there will be several people participating that have been doing regenerative agriculture, for example, and that we've been designing what we call constellations of currencies, which is how currencies relate to one another. And they have been doing that for a while with us, and they will be present. So there would be deep practice. And there's a first workshop where, it's the need to kind of give you the sense of the consciousness shift from object-centric to flow-centric. And then the workshop 2, which is going to be like roll your sleeves and workshop your currency and give form to something that you're proud of, that you're good of, that you can move with in the world, so that you get your tools first, your canvases, your paints, your new eyes to see, and then you go and paint the reality. You will paint the art object, the social organism that you want to bring into life.
Yeah. So do be aware that even though we'll have these case study presentations and we will have something of a practice focused, this is actually the first of 2 workshops. And this first one is designed to be a little bit more theoretical and conceptual, like Fernanda said, seeing with new lenses. And this will actually be a prerequisite, right? Because we're really hoping to cultivate this community of practitioners. Will be a prerequisite to a second workshop that will be more workshoppy, where, like Fernanda said, you'll get to roll up your sleeves and workshop your designs for your projects with your peers in a larger group, and in a group that has sort of a varied level of experience, which we think is really important for something as serious as currency design.
Indeed.
Yeah, so there's this way in which the first workshop is really great if you just want the tools and frameworks to be able to go off and do it yourself, where the second set is much better for getting the, like, well, what do you think of how I'm working on this? And how is, I can borrow from that idea. And, I see what you're doing with the constellation there with peers. And so if you're much more the do-it-yourself person, the first session might be sufficient for you. But we're hoping that you'll come into the second workshop in the spring in order to be building with your peers.
Yeah, and we need to build languages, common language for that. Otherwise, people that come with the workshop 2 without knowing the philosophies behind it and the language and the ontologies and the tools will get frustrated. We're like, what are they talking about when they speak about this? What do they really mean? So
we don't use any jargon at all. What are you talking about?
No. We're clean on that. So let's go into some questions and answers. Robert, you've been tracking the order of the questions. You want to offer us the first one so we can go on?
Sure, there's quite a bit. One was just to start was asking, so a prerequisite for this new currencies is transparency, no? Question mark.
In some cases, probably a lot that have to do with like larger groups, corporations, and bigger businesses, if we're interested in sort of accountability there, particularly environmental and climate-related accountability, right? But there's also this sort of sense in which transparency, it's like transparency to whom or for whom, right? Like we definitely respect that there would be many instances in which transparency might be most important between 2 particular participants in a network, and maybe there's sort of like a time-based reasoning of why something might need to be made transparent at a particular moment. And so it's a pretty vague question, because really we wouldn't rule out any use case, right? Because small communities certainly have different needs than like large corporations. So in the talk of, in the sort of blockchain talk about like, oh my gosh, everything is transparent on this network, that's awesome. We're like, yes, absolutely, in most of those instances, but also there may be small communities that need to navigate in different ways.
It depends on your membrane, and that's again jargon, but it's like living systems. It's like my own being. I have my membrane, which is my skin, and I can interact with you because I have my skin, which protects my integrity, my system integrity, but it also allows me to connect with you. So it depends on what level of the membrane you want to allow, and so it's a design question. It's a design driver. Next.
Okay, well, you can let me know if we should stick to the more deep technical currency questions or jump to some of the questions about the workshop itself. But the next one was, do you think most currency patterns have been discovered or already exist somewhere in corporations as proprietary currencies?
Yes and no. Like, that's so composable that I would say, sure, the seeds of which might already be present, but we're still in the process of exploring this field. Like, this is not a space in which there have been a ton of people already teaching and thinking about this stuff. There are some seeds of people who have been doing the work for a long time, but the full realm of making what visible for who to achieve what end, I would say some, yes, and don't discount, like, what can we borrow from? And at the same time, that there's stuff to be still discovered.
Thankfully, because it allows for full creativity. Like, we don't know what we don't know. I mean, it would be kind of pretentious to say, yes, all patterns have been discovered. And it's also the interoperability among currencies. I mean, when you think about, time currency, where people use for products and services, I haven't seen a time currency that, for example, has a reputation currency running with it that helps for the governance of that particular time currency. So it's not only the pattern of a single currency, but also how they communicate among them to be able to create more of that level systems integrity that we were thinking about. So patterns, endless.
Okay. How do currencies relate to yin and yang currencies as defined by Bernard Leitner? And are those always yin currencies, the currencies?
I love that question. Well, yin and yang, masculine and the feminine. I remember Bernard saying, we need both. It would be like having an A with only one leg. And in the past, he would speak about matrifocal communities and how they would have more feminine currencies that would be about relationship, about circle. Well, other yang currencies would be about, the products, the services, this. So we need both to have a wholeness on how that could, to be whole, yin and yang.
Yeah, another really important facet of that for me is the different temporalities associated with yin and yang oriented currencies. So, right, so a lot of what Bernard Leiter said was that, we have a short-sightedness, and that monetary, financial capital and money as we know it sort of lends itself to a short-termism. And that currencies that are more focused on the relationships rather than the things themselves actually enable us to sort of be planning for longer futures, right? I think someone somewhere that I admire said we should be able to think 7 generations into the future. And the way that money works now basically enables us to see and plan for the next quarter. Right?
That gave me chills. Next question.
I was asked, will the workshop consist of videos so we can learn at our own pace and time?
Yes, videos will be recorded. There's also other videos and resources that will be that will help to ground what the concepts of the workshop will be. So it's not only the videos of the lessons themselves or the case studies, but also other people that have produced incredible material. So we'll have a curation of those.
We're also mindful that we're trying to make this a global offering online, and people are in many different time zones. And so we will be doing live presentations, which are great for if you want to show up and ask questions, but recording those sessions so that you don't end up coming at 5 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock at night. If that doesn't fit your time zone, we can accommodate you too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are currencies that promote rivalrous dynamics discouraged?
Rivalry can be good. All right, I think what's really important about understanding our approach to currencies is about this context sensitivity and an awareness of what is trying to be created. And so it can be nice if we're trying to improve our ability to run, that we're competing over those things. And the world, has fixed objects. Like if we're talking rival goods, we should have currencies that represent rivalry, that match the rivalness of the goods. So it's not a, yeah.
Right. And another word for rivalry in that instance would be scarce. And even though there's a sense in which looking at currencies as flows really opens up a great sense of like, oh my gosh, there's all this value in the world that I wasn't even seeing before. There's also the real reality that this sort of awareness is coming at a time when, transnational agencies are predicting water shortages, for example, and food scarcity. And so in order for us to be agile with our designs in a way that, like I was saying earlier, really respects the carrying capacity of the earth and also the sort of affordances, for example, of a bioregion, I don't think we would turn away, or we would guffaw or poo-poo designs that expect to build in sort of metrics of full carrying capacity and resourcefulness on that basis.
Mm-hmm. And I want to add that this part of the purpose of the Commons Engine is that we're not here to teach people about how you're going to get rich with cryptocurrency. We're here to tell people the story about how do we build the commons, how you can get yours. We have a saying, get mine, grow ours, and it's perfectly fine to get mine and grow as long as we grow ours. And that part of the purpose of currency design is to be able to make visible and to manage the resources, the scarce resources, while also seeing the abundance on some of those resources, for example, knowledge, and being able to see them with other eyes, making them available and enable them with good currency design. So it's both that. Again, design drivers.
Mm-hmm. Maybe questions about the logistics of the workshop itself?
Well, we still have...
Okay, well, that was the next one I was going to bring up, sort of a combination of a few questions was, will the workshop have its own currency? How much will the workshop cost, and in what currency?
Irony of ironies. We are, will the workshop have its own currency? That is a feature of the Open Learning Commons that we have not entirely fleshed out yet. So that'll be something that we can update you on. But certainly, in that will be a community of practice. We will most certainly have community management techniques that will sort of reflect back to us what's working and what isn't working. So there will be more of those. There will be there will definitely be non-tradable currencies.
Non-monetary.
Non-monetary and non-tradable currencies involved in the workshop. As for the pricing, we are looking into accepting hot and cryptocurrencies, but as it stands, we've priced things in US dollars. And our payment platform can handle other fiat currencies, other national currencies. And those, was there an ask about the specifics?
Prices.
Yeah. So for those of you here, and not even just those of you here, for anyone who gets in before the end of August, we're offering a special price of $380. And that's discounted from a $500 admission price. And that will change after the end of August.
Then we'll go to the 500. However, if you bring a friend after August, after what? September, the end of August, then we're going to have discounted pricing for bringing a friend on too, because we want, if you've got a team, we want everybody to come. and be able to participate together.
I just shared in the chat the page of the workshop that we finished publishing this morning, and you'll have all the details there. And if you have questions, please contact us directly, and it could be through email, social media.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll be, of course, emailing periodically, provided you want us to.
Mm-hmm. More questions?
Okay, well, I'll continue to skip over some of the currency design technical questions, but someone, Gary asked, what is the current state of the CommonsEngine project on Holochain? Actually, I guess that's technical, but read to me as a workshop question too.
What is the state?
So there's no the CommonsEngine project necessarily. We are incubating different projects that fall under thematic cohorts. So the first cohort that we are bringing together, again, you can probably tell we're all about community here, but so the first sort of community that we're bringing together is around regenerative agriculture. And that's sort of getting in, ramping up as we speak, and that includes projects all the way from, online marketplaces to some of the infrastructural accounting tech that we're hoping will benefit the larger Holochain ecosystem. So, in our role as incubators and project nurturers and community builders, there's no the CommonsEngine project.
Yeah, and then we have this offering, which we are just announcing now and inviting you to participate in. And I think it's important to look at it from like two different angles. We're trying to support regenerative agriculture projects, and participants in that cohort will be in the workshop, right? Like, we want them to benefit from these skills. But in our partnership with Metacurrency, we wanted to bring forth and highlight currency design because it's such an important part of the work that we're doing to move towards a common-centric economy.
And part of our regenerative agriculture projects, part of the criteria is people that are developing with Holochain. So whether because they want to run their currencies in Holochain or because they're running their systems in Holochain, so there would be a lot of Holochainy.
Which is so important for us, not just because we're super duper loyal, but because we want to see what can happen when currencies become more interoperable. So when we can start building constellations of currencies and get away from, I see some excitement. So we can sort of get away from, the one currency to rule them all, or the one sort of monopolistic producer in a particular industry, to sort of strange bedfellows and interesting alliances that create more possibility for those who are involved.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Next question.
Well, some were sort of a follow-on from the pricing. Jay asked two questions. Could you offer a sliding scale a la gift economy, or is there a different pricing for the course between the global south and global north?
That's a good idea. We can talk about it.
I would say if it's an issue, reach out to us. We did want to offer kind of a firm, here's what we would like to see, but
Yeah. So our price point is basically cost covering based on our estimations, but I really appreciate that. We had thought about doing a nonprofit versus corporate sort of tier, but I think I really think we should also include a global south, global north, and if the price point that we set is a barrier to you, please do reach out personally. We'd really appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there's always I've been doing workshops for a while, and especially on what is new economies, and there's constantly in my heart that I would say the paradox, right, of wanting to shape a new world and creating a world where we have like the reciprocity, solving the reciprocity gap, and also being able to be sustainable. So we want to allow for both. So there will be opportunities that we will announce of certain things we will need to become an open learning commons that would be open for the opportunity of entering into the workshop, for example, post-production of video, because who wants to see Zoom calls that have different interaction, and you want the succinct knowledge and things like that. But we'll be announcing that as we move. And if you have a particular idea of, oh, this offer I could offer this value, or I can invite a friend and he'll pay and I don't want to, or I could write this for you, or just be creative, and we invite that creativity and we'll look into it. So we're not closed to it, but we are interested also in becoming sustainable. And part of what we want to do is that from the materials of the workshop, we will be able to create what we call a do-it-yourself, so that then people could be accessing high-level materials and go through them by themselves into learning how to become a currency designer, so that we can offer it for more people, and that is really not scarce but abundant, as knowledge is supposed to be.
Anton said stepping stones to the gift economy, which I really love, because it's true. It's like,
yeah, we also have a question about a certificate, which is a form of currency, for participating in the workshop. And I think it's easy enough for us to say at the end of the workshop we could offer certificates to people. And I think over time we would want to move towards something more official. But I'm not sure that we want to wholly own that ourselves. Like, we participate in a larger currency design community, and the standard for that should not just be done by us. So yes, we could offer a simple certificate for completing the workshops. And if this is a growing field, we need to come together with currency design professionals and collectively decide how to manage that certification going forward. And I wouldn't want to take too much on ourselves and not respect the larger community.
But we will be looking into ways to make that certificate meaningful. Basically, we'll provide you with a certificate, but it's definitely work still to be done to make that certificate the social currency that you might want it to be.
So we have 4 more minutes, so I think we should go with one more question. And then go into the poll and then closure. Okay. Yeah. So one more question, Robert. You're the one.
Okay. I don't know what the poll is, and I want you to think about it before the poll comes. We are working on this at an international level. We don't know what time of day is going to be the best time of day. And so in a minute, we're going to ask you to participate in a poll to help us determine what you think, what we think should be the time of day that we will have these sessions. So last question, you think about the time of day.
Okay, well, I might actually steal the last question for myself then. And because there's so many technical questions remaining, how do you propose we'll sort of follow up on those, or maybe that will be seeded into the content of the workshop as well? So I'm curious, what should we do with the questions that didn't get answered?
Could tweet out some answers in the coming weeks and months leading up to the workshop.
Yeah, we could also harvest that and send it to you in a follow-up email.
Thanks for the content generation, you guys.
Yeah, there's awesome questions. We would really want to go there and tweet into the @CommonsEngine account, and some of those answers require more than a tweet. So we will think about that. We will think about that, but there's definitely questions I would love to get into because they're so good. So let me get for now.
Oh yeah, we'll update you on how we decide to pursue the questions.
Might be a fact. And we thank Holochain for its support, especially the people in community, the part of community enablement that have been creating the link and the bridge for us in Telegram and other channels. And we'll also probably post some of those questions and answers there. and give it to them. So we'll continue to work with them. And here comes the poll. And so let's see.
Oh, I can't wait to find out what people think.
I'm hoping I don't have to get up at 7 a.m. Come on, guys. You can do it.
Fernanda is often coming in from Hawaii to participate. So that's a little harder on the European people.
Yeah.
But easier for the Australians.
Yeah.
I saw a couple like greetings from Australia.
Since I'm an early bird, coffee at 6 is in the run for me. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna give 10 more seconds. We have 44 people voted. And what is a good convenient time for them?
Then we're done.
So yeah,
Because
we're
you
done.
and I are the other. Yeah, great.
Okay, thank you very much. And seems we are all into the 10 a.m. Pacific type of thing.
Cool.
So let's close.
Thank you, everybody. So grateful for you showing up to participate with us. We're looking forward to seeing you in the workshop.
Yeah.
Yes.
October 3rd, if not sooner.
Yes. Don't be shy. Reach us. We are very open. We're very open for participation. What matters is that more people become and have the tools so that we can all design the world that we know in our hearts is possible. So thank you very much. Aloha.
Hi.
Ciao.
I know mahalo.